I'm here in Toronto with a gentleman in 1990 who was nominated for a Juno, the most promising artist, Canadian music icon, Ray Lyell. Ray, the first question I have to ask you, taking you back to 1987, when you won for the songwriting, could you talk a little bit about the song itself and how you came up with the name for that?
I don't remember the song, to be honest with you. I think it was a song called Take This Heart, and I have no idea what the song was about back then. I've lost all recordings of it. I have no idea, but I do remember the contest, and it was the first one out of 97.7 Star Trek's contest, and I can't remember how many bands entered, but it was they picked 10 of us, and we had to play live. I think the last 5 bands had to play live, and we ended up winning the contest, but I don't remember much about that.
And later that year, you co-wrote a song with the late Paul Hackman. I think he's from Helix. Can you talk a little bit about that song? And also the day when you found out that Paul, tragically died in a bus accident, what was going through your mind at that time?
Well, the song was called Wild in the Streets. Paul used to live in Lucan, and I don't know if you remember a story of the Black Donnellys. The Black Donnellys were from Lucan, so I was all excited because I had read the book as a kid and wanted to go right with Paul because he lived in Lucan, Ontario. So he knew a little bit about where they used to live, and we kind of trekked out. We became really good friends pretty fast. And anyways, I had come up with a guitar riff and written some of the music to the song, actually most of the words, and we got together and we had no title for the song, so we started throwing out titles, writing down titles, throwing them on the table, and we ended up choosing, I think he was the one who chose Wild in the Streets. And from then on, I remember demoing it, and we sent it to our manager. We were both managed by the same guy, and the band ended up taking it. And the song was, I'm not sure how much of a hit it was in America. I think it did better in America than it did in Canada. But the album, they ran into some political problems with the record company over that, and the album didn't get released to the magnitude that it should have. And so I don't think the song got the success that it might have had if the record company had been 100% behind it. But it was on one of their tours of that album, I believe, that I got a phone call. And I remember early morning, my manager called and said that they'd been in an accident and that Paul was killed. And the thing that ran through my head so much is, Paul and I had a discussion not that long ago about dying. And Paul was saying that his mom was afraid of flying. And he said, "Mom, don't you agree that when it's your time to go, then you're just going to go?" And she said, "Yeah, that may be so, but if it's a guy's time next to me to go, I don't want to go with him." Right? And that popped into my head. And all I could think of was, wow, we just had these conversations not that long ago, and he's gone. And all the success that Helix had, all of their fame and whatever, really didn't mean a bloody thing at that time, So it kind of hit me that way. It was worse because they asked me to play at the funeral, and I had to play at Paul's funeral, and I vowed I would never play another funeral again.
And one thing that came to my mind when I found out you're from Hamilton. The only thing that in my mind that I thought came from Hamilton were steelworkers and the Ticats, and not really that much. I didn't think there was that big a musical scene. How big has the musical scene, let's say, come from the late 80s to right now?
Hamilton always had a huge musical scene. It's been an underground scene. Hamilton is amazing for indie music. It's a complete underground scene, and it's always sold short. A lot of people don't know how some of the musicians we have are very, very talented, and some of the writers we have are very, very creative, and a lot of the people that were starting bands back in the 70s and 80s were kids of steel workers and vowed that they'd never work in a factory. And so that's probably where they got the fire under their butt to be so creative and to put out such good music. But Hamilton has never had the backing that it should have had.
And, let's go back to when you first wrote that song, Carry Me, and then the other music that you released, we're talking about the late 80s, getting into the 90s. When you started to explode on the musical scene within Canada and United States, how much do you think that has changed from then to now?
Well, that's a big question. Carry Me, let's start with that one. Carry Me basically was a filler. I wrote the song for just because I needed a song on the album, and it was taken from 3 real stories that I had put it on. But the effect that Carry Me's had throughout the world has been amazing. Some of the stories that I've heard back. One time I was playing in a bar in Owen Sound, and there was as far as my memory goes, this has been back, I guess would have been 94, 95, and there was an old, I could tell someone was staring at me throughout I was doing an acoustic set, and I could tell that someone was staring at me through the performance. And at the when the set was finished, this guy walked up to me, and pretty tough looking guy, and he said to me, "You Ray Lyell?" I said, "Maybe." And he said to me, I was in prison in Spain for 2 years, and he said it was not like jail over here. In Spain, they didn't have enough food to feed everybody, and they as far as I remember, he said they used to just put food in the courtyard, and if you weren't tough enough, you didn't eat that day. He said I went for a long time without eating, and I became ruthless. I started ripping guys apart to get this food. He says I didn't want to live like that. He said I planned it. That was going to have the bed sheets hanging from the rafters. They were going to find me in the morning. Your tape came in the mail that afternoon, and Carry Me gave me the strength to get through 2 years of prison. And there's stories upon stories like that over that song. I was not prepared for that when that song was released. I mean, it wasn't email back then, but the amount of letters that I got, and I still hear stories. Every year I hear a story of what that song has done. And to me, it was a filler for an album. That's all.
With Carry Me, you've actually now formed a ministry called Carry Me. What are some of the stories that you can share that you've come across with people, whether you've gone to, out to like Skid Rows and stuff like that, and you talk to people that are going through a lot of suffering, and then later on you come back and talk to them, and actually they're starting to recover and return back to society?
Well, Carry Me Ministries isn't really that old. We started a church downtown Dunnville called Crux 180, and it's helped funded by Carry Me Ministries. A lot of times what we usually do is we'll talk to people that have had a hard go at things or just don't seem to have a lot of hope, and I'll meet with them, have lunch with them. With some of the kids are born into very low-income families that don't really have a lot, and they don't really see a future. So I started a program called Get Out of Town, where we take them on day trips or camping trips, or which is also funded by Carry Me Ministries. So it's really just a ministry that is providing some answers and some hope for people.
And is there anywhere that people can actually go, whether they want to volunteer with you or even to, let's say, donate to help your ministry?
Yep, they can go to our website, which is raylyell.com, and there's a little section called Crux 180 on the website, and it'll give them a little bit more information.
And let's go back to the music for a second. As it's changed from the late 80s to 90s to now, what is the good and the bad that you've seen happen?
There was a song released in the 70s or early 80s, I believe, called "Video Killed the Radio Star," and I think that shows the negative and positive sides of things. Some of the, and I mean, it's always been this way. Music has always been about money. I mean, it's whatever sells, whatever is going to bring in the big dollars is what's going to always be on top. But it's getting to a point now where it doesn't really have to be a lot of artist talent. A lot of songs are written by groups of people, which again, it was sort of like the 50s and 60s. But a lot of the artist talent, you don't really have to sing on key. You don't even have to play an instrument. I mean, it's all done for you, and whatever you can't do, computers are doing for you. I don't know if that's such a negative thing. It actually gives some positive hope to people that normally would maybe never have gotten anywhere. But by the same token, we're kind of losing an art. Where it took hours and hours and hours to hone your talent and your gift, and you really worked at something, and now it's more of a you're spending hours on a technical thing. You're spending hours on a computer learning how to run software rather than actually sit there and play guitar or learn to sing.
And you actually, in 1996, you started doing this vocal teaching system. Can you share a little bit about that and some success stories that artists that you've helped along the years?
I've had few people on, maybe 3 or 4 people on Canadian Idol. I've got one girl right now that's doing well. She's signed to a label, I believe, in Europe. Her name is Melissa Bell. She's doing really well. Great voice. I got another young guy that's going for a record deal in Los Angeles. So there's a few people. I would say I've taught thousands of people. And out of thousands of people, I can really count on both hands how many people really had the desire and the talent to do something with it.
And I noticed on your website that actually there's band members you have which performed with you with Ray Lyell and the Storm that are still with you decades later, and actually they're providing instructions into other aspects of the music industry.
No, there's one girl that played with me named Paula, and she's still with me today. And if we do go out as the Storm, she'll come with us. But she's a teacher in my school, so she's the only one that's really involved in the musical education privately. We had a keyboard player named Vince that does. He's a high school teacher or a university teacher now, I think. But he teaches music in school.
You know, one question I have to ask you: you went from doing rock and roll, and now you do Christian, music. What is the one thing that you feel that made you want to switch genres that way?
I don't think I ever really switched genres. I play rock and roll as well as Christian music. I think I started writing Christian music because I believe in a relationship with Jesus Christ. But the only reason I came to that point was just because being in the industry, you realize how phony things are. Just because you're selling a lot of records or how the media treats you doesn't necessarily mean or provide your worth at all. And I found that there are a lot of people that when they hit rock bottom, they don't know, they have nothing left. And I've seen the business chew up people and spit them out. And I felt I was going along those lines at one time myself. And I realized it's not really about, your worth doesn't really amount to what other people think of you or your success. Your worth amounts to how God sees you. And everybody's worth the same to him.
And, are there any inspirational words that you want to share with artists that are now up and coming, whether they're going from the bar scene out to doing major Coliseum tours and stuff like that? What kind of words could you share that could help them to, keep their head level and not fall into the same traps that, so many bands in the past have fallen into with drugs and addictions and that?
I don't have words to share with them as far as you can do it, all that kind of stuff, but I would ask them to ask themselves, spend a lot of times, go into meditation, do whatever you want, but spend a lot of time asking yourself one question: why do you want to do this?
And, in closing, with people that want to seek out you and be taught the musical aspects, the vocal, and other things within the musical industry, what kind of, can you quickly leave your website address and, some information you want to share too?
Sure. Website address is www.raylyell.com. And anybody that does want to train with me, I will ask them that very question when they come with me is, why do you want to do this? Because if you're doing this to be famous, if you're doing this to show what you can do, you're going to be a very lonely person one day. But if you're doing this because music is in you and has to get out and you love music, then success takes on a whole different meaning. And you're probably going to be very fulfilled one day.
Thank you so much for sharing this thoughts with me, Ray.
You're welcome.